So today we need to go over those scenarios. Did you look over them at all?
I read over the directions. I haven't like read the individual scenarios or anything, but I know the gist of what we're doing.
Okay. There's just 5 of them.
Okay.
So for each one, what could have prevented this from occurring? Is the organization liable for a lawsuit? Why or why not? And then how would you go about repairing the situation? And then there's resolutions that we can read over when we're done.
Okay.
So I'll just read the first one.
Okay.
So the first one says, the Hawaii verdict came in the case of an 18-year-old high school student who fell to her death from a Maui hotel balcony. Lauren Crossan, of Randolph, New Jersey, had traveled to Hawaii in 2004 with Susan Sadler's daughter, and another New Jersey cheerleader to perform in the halftime show at the Hula Bowl. Within hours of her arrival at the Hyatt Regency Maui Resort, Crossan was seen drinking alcohol. Her body was found the next day on the hotel grounds. So, that's quite the situation. Hi, Vivian.
Hi.
So, what could have prevented this from occurring?
Well, how did she get the alcohol? Like, she's 18.
Yeah.
That's my first thing, because I think the alcohol is probably the cause of the fall.
It says she came with cheerleaders, but was there any other supervision?
It says Susan Sadler's daughter, and another cheerleader, and so I'm assuming Susan or Suzanne Sadler is the only adult that's with them.
Yeah.
And then there's 3 girls.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. It probably would have been a smarter idea to have at least one other parent there.
Yeah.
And some kind of supervision issue may have happened here. Or, I
feel like, it might just be missing that in like the scenario that it's saying, but like I feel like there's no one person that's in charge or like in charge of supervising.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the girl is 18, and so she doesn't technically need a supervisor.
That's true.
And so,
if she was seeing,
but it's also it's a school sanctioned like event, right?
it doesn't specify.
It says she's a high school student, but then it doesn't say that it's like the high school team. Because if it's like the high school team coming, then I feel like there should be more of a like supervisor role. But if it's like not, then she's 18, so she's legally an adult.
Yeah. But it sounds like sometimes I cheered, and sometimes they'll have like these all-star type events where if you get recognized by someone high up in your division or whatever, they will ask you to go perform somewhere. And so it's not necessarily the whole team gets to go. It's just specific people. And so it may or may not be a high school thing.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah. So I don't know. It doesn't specify at all.
Okay.
Let's see. The next question is the organization liable for a lawsuit? Why or why not? And it doesn't really specify what.
Yeah, like organization, does it mean the like hotel they were at? Does it mean like
it's probably referring to the high school, I'm assuming, because that's all it mentions really.
Okay.
That's what I'm high school student. Or at least this Suzanne lady.
I feel like if it is a high school team they're traveling with, there should be like someone in charge, and yeah, so I feel like they're kind of responsible.
Yeah.
I feel like it depends on the rules though too. If there was like protocol that they didn't follow, then they'd definitely be responsible. But if they weren't given any instructions, then they can't really be held liable to anything either. It's kind of based on parent that if the parents just said, hey, or, whatever, and they didn't say anything about it, then...
That's a good point.
Yeah. I feel like, I don't know, it doesn't sound like it's a school organized event, in which case the organization would just be this Suzanne lady. And I don't necessarily know if you could sue her unless you knew that she was the one who gave her alcohol, which is against the law, because you can't give alcohol to someone that's under 21.
I think it's really hard to decide if they should be liable or not, because we literally have like a 3-sentence like summary of what happened. I want to have we need more information.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I think just basically if she gave her the alcohol and she watched her drink and didn't say anything, it didn't stop her, then I think there's some legal action that could take place. But if she didn't know, and some girls will sneak things.
Yeah.
Really just love to sneak alcohol around. And I don't know if it doesn't sound like it's some big organized event, in which case it would be on the girl, and there's not really anyone's fault besides her own.
Yeah. Okay.
The next question, how would you go about repairing this situation?
You can't really repair a dead person, but you can put into place protocols or like future preventative measures.
Yeah. I think as a school in the future, like any traveling or like that's done, there needs to be like, you are in charge, here's the protocols, like clearly put in place so this doesn't happen again.
Yeah, same. Just preventative measures for the future, because there's nothing you can do about the girl dying. I mean, it would probably be very appropriate to like approach the family and reach out to them in some kind of a way, but their daughter died, so you can't really fix that.
Yeah. Like reach out and give your condolences and apologize for the situation, but like nothing's gonna fix it.
Yeah. Okay, so do you want to hear the solution?
Sure.
Oh, I have to read a whole article. We'll do that at the end. How about that?
Okay.
Okay, so scenario 2. In Maryland, 2 men, former volunteer firefighters in Anne Arundel County, have filed a sex abuse lawsuit claiming that Lois A. DeCamara, a former president of Audenton Volunteer Fire Company, sexually abused them on multiple occasions when they were teenage recruits. The men said that the fire officials ignored them when they reported the incidents. The Anne Arundel County government and fire company are named in the sex abuse lawsuit.
Okay.
So, what could have prevented this from occurring?
I think when they claimed that happened initially, a report should have been filed.
Yeah.
But should be investigated. Because now I feel like it looks like they're hiding something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who knows who's being truthful or not, but...
Yeah, and it's hard because it says that they said back then that the people ignored them when they tried to say something, but then it would be a little bit easier, but since nobody recorded or anything, it's all just hearsay.
Yeah. It's like, who are you going to believe?
Mm-hmm. I don't know how else you would prevent it other than investigating it prior to this time. It's a little late to prevent that.
Yeah.
It's a legal thing no matter how you see it. So there was already laws and stuff against it. So it was just that person's actions.
Yeah. And is the organization liable for a lawsuit? Yeah.
I think if it's the case that like these guys are telling the truth and they reported it and nothing was done, like no report or action was like filed, then yeah. But I don't know how you would prove it. I mean, I don't know.
At least an investigation is definitely needed. And
Yeah,
yeah,
then
if they found proof of like a written document of a report, rather than just by word of mouth, then I think it could go to a lawsuit. But I feel like even then, people can get away with filing lawsuits even if you don't have written proof. It just will kind of further the investigation.
I feel like in this case, though, the biggest thing that they could probably catch on to is if they had told people and had been ignored and nothing had happened, that would be where the lawsuit would actually gain any like validity.
Yeah, it's like I think they win the lawsuit in that situation. I think no matter what, they can file one, but actually winning it, they'd have to have proof.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. So then, how could you go about repairing the situation?
Investigation. Still.
Yeah. Investigate.
That's the only way you're going to find out if they're telling the truth is investigate it.
Yeah, and if they are telling the truth, obviously there'll be like repercussions and probably like jail time or something for whatever Lois, whatever her name is.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder about though is even if they find this guy guilty, he's a former president, so he's no longer there. So like how would that still impact the company now? Like what could they do to make sure it doesn't happen again? Because obviously those men tried to report it supposedly and nothing happened. So maybe later on or now they should once again develop some way of always reporting those types of things or something. I don't know.
Having some kind of written protocol, like a way to write the actual reports and a place to store them where they're not going to be lost. So that if this were to happen again, they would have proof.
And like who to go to as well, because they're a supervisor who did it and say, hey, write this report. So there needs to be somebody besides the head can report things to. So
That's true.
Isn't that what like human resources is for? And like going to like someone set aside that's like not involved, not the head administrator.
Well,
like
I
go
think,
to them.
Yeah. And even if they wanted to, they could go directly to the police station in this situation and report to them instead of reporting to the supervisor that obviously they can't report to.
That's true. Yeah, because the situation, it's not just like a workplace issue. It's like it's a law is being broken. So the police should be involved. You're right. Okay.
Cool. All right. Next one. Mayor Mark Funkhauser took his city council colleagues to court on Friday, seeking to overturn a measure that bans his wife, Gloria, from volunteering regularly in his office. The lawsuit in Jackson County Circuit Court marks a new phase in the ongoing battle between the mayor and the council over how Funkhauser handles his office, his mayoral powers, and his public role. The council members said that the ordinance had been prompted because what? Score trail?
I don't know.
Okay, was a full-time unpaid worker in her husband's office. Okay, so the wife was a full-time unpaid worker in her husband's office and had become a source of controversy. What do they mean by controversy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe she was compromising the work in some way, or they were scared that she would.
She's not being paid.
I don't know how much
I don't know. Maybe the
volunteers actually get involved. Go ahead.
So the controversy was that his wife was working in his office and volunteering. Like, she wasn't getting paid, but
Yeah.
I don't see the problem.
I don't. I don't know.
I mean,
other than like
getting information she shouldn't, being involved in decisions she shouldn't be involved in, maybe because her husband is in a position of power.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or even just distracting if she's there all day.
That's what I was thinking, is maybe she is just distracting him because he's so high up and getting in the way of his work, which then makes the company struggle. But I don't think that this is necessarily a case for a lawsuit.
I don't either.
I think that's just something they need to figure out.
Yeah.
So then how would we repair the situation?
I think the mayor and his council, there needs to be like a third party to help make this decision, I feel like. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, if they set rules for volunteers, it needs to be standard for everyone. It can't be based just because he's her wife. Discrimination in a form, I suppose. So
That's true. Yeah, I feel like it would be beneficial to like bring it up with the staff even and like get their idea. Maybe not have the whatever the main guy from the office have the meeting with them, but have the mayor or somebody third party, like you said, meet with the staff and see like, do you think that she's a distraction? I don't know.
Yeah. See if it really is a problem.
Yeah, because it sounds to me like this couple is just whining that they can't be together all day long at work.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I like what you said though, Vivian, is having those standards and they need to be upheld for everyone. No one is an exception to them. And so I think making sure that those are in place, and if they're not, writing them and then following through with what they say. Right. Anything else on that one?
No.
Okay. Number 4. 2 former volunteers at the Bergen County Animal Shelter alleged that they were let go for exposing animal cruelty at the facility and notified the county on Wednesday that they will file a lawsuit. In a notice of claim sent to county officials, Michelle Cohen of Hackensack and Glenn Gilbert of Wallington said the termination was a violation of the First Amendment right to free speech. In an interview Thursday, Cohen and Gilbert said they discovered last year the animals at the Teterboro shelter were being euthanized by injecting drugs into their hearts, a procedure they called inhumane and outdated. They also said animals were killed, although they had been treated and adopted. Gilbert, a former Jersey City police officer who volunteered regularly at the shelter since he retired 16 years ago, said he and Cohen asked county officials to conduct an investigation. We decided to go public because we got no response to our complaints, said Gilbert, explaining why he posted several comments on pet-related websites and message boards last summer in which he detailed the allegations. Oh, okay, so what could have prevented this from occurring? I feel like these questions don't work with every scenario.
Yeah.
Prevented what specifically? Getting them having them not let go, having the animals not be euthanized like that.
Yeah, so they're saying that there is animal abuse, but then like most shelters euthanize animals if they've been there for a while because they run out of space. Which I mean, it just people have a different view on that if it's humane or not humane.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I
it's
think
legal within like the start not practice legal, then it be counted as it. But if they were adopted and treated and still euthanized, that presents the problem.
mm-hmm. It could have been prevented by having someone that's a supervisor make sure everyone's following the law. I don't know.
Yeah, like what is the law? Like, is what they're doing legal? Because that's,
Yeah.
I mean,
It depends on each state, I think. Each state has their own animal rights laws.
Yeah.
Well, I think it could have been prevented if at the beginning they'd gone through kind of the procedure, like the hiring procedure that was talked about in like the reading. Like if they had talked about what happens, like sometimes animals will be euthanized and they'd let the people know that, or like if they had set expectations and things like that, then and said if it was a good fit, then that could have been prevented too.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point. Making them aware of everything.
Yeah. Well, so do you think that they are liable for a lawsuit? I think they could. If it's an illegal action, then yes. And you cannot technically fire somebody because they blabbed about something that you're doing.
Yeah, there is no like confidentiality agreement or anything that was signed that like you can't talk about what happens here or anywhere else.
Unless there was one, but it doesn't specify.
I don't think there would be, but yeah.
No.
So I think they're liable in that sense.
Yes. At least that can be under investigation. And then if they are doing illegal euthanizations, then that definitely can go through with a lawsuit because it's illegal.
Yeah. So it's more review. Investigations need to be done.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the answer to all of these. Actually do the research into it and see what will happen.
Yes. All right, last one. An insurance company that paid out the claim of a Nova Scotia couple after a devastating fire is suing 2 volunteer fire departments, claiming the damage could have been avoided. The lawsuit by Aviva is against the North Sydney and Frenchville volunteer departments. The fire departments were called to a home in North Sydney in July 2007. They put out a blaze in a back bedroom, and it reappeared a few hours later and destroyed the rest of the house. Larry and Diane Stonehouse spent the next 9 months in hotels. A statement of claim filed in Nova Scotia Supreme Court in Halifax says the fire department didn't have specialized equipment designed to detect heat and flame or turn to somebody that did. So what
it's interesting that the
could have
flame
prevented this?
I was gonna say it's interesting that the flame reappeared. So the only thing that I'm assuming is if it was the fire's responsibility, like problem, and like it started because it wasn't fixed. Responsibility to like determine that, or are they just responsible for putting out the fire?
I feel like they're responsible for putting out the fire, but I don't think they put it out completely because this happened to my friend's house. I was actually like going running one night past their house, and her bathroom upstairs, the fan that it was on and somehow caught on fire and started a fire in their bathroom. And so they ran out of their house, and their next door neighbors, before the fire department even got there, went and put out the fire. But even though it was already put out, the fire department said they were legally, like, they had to go in and check. And so they had to open the ceiling and check and make sure there was no flames or like embers still there that would restart a fire. So I feel like they should have done that in that situation also. Like,
Yeah.
double checked.
Making sure it's all gone. Yeah, and if you feel like firemen should know that as well.
They're trained. Well, they're volunteer, so I don't know if that affects, like, legally.
But being volunteers, they need to be trained by someone regardless.
Yeah.
So maybe
Like,
So
in
I
the
think-
reading, it's like the volunteers are trained as staff. Like, there's a training that goes into it, so.
Yeah. So I think for lawsuit purposes, in that video, the podcast we had to watch, it was talking about how if the volunteers are trained as employees, then they are liable for the lawsuit, not the company. But if they weren't properly trained, then it goes back to the company. And so I think in this situation, either way, somebody is capable of being sued because that should not have happened, and that was a job that they should have gotten done. But it just goes back to whether or not they were trained, depending on who gets the lawsuit.
Yeah.
So how can this be prevented in the future?
Better training.
Yeah. Or repairing the situation. I feel like in the lawsuit, there could be something about getting money for living in the hotels for 9 months, and just a little bit of empathy there
Yeah.
to repair it. Somehow get money to build a new home.
Yeah, they'll probably get money if they do win and, like, the situation is what it seems. I feel like they'll get money for the hotel, the house, and then usually you get, like, pain and suffering or, like,
Yeah.
the time spent, like, going through all this. They probably get a pretty large sum returned.
Yeah. Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next part that we have to go over is just our WPO, the next section. So I'm just going to stop the broadcast and then I could talk about it.